Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Picard Lumumba back once again, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage while always betting on Black. We're going to have a robust conversation this evening regarding the 2022 midterm election results. As we know, there were numerous Black women who were up for some prominent seats in this 2022 midterm election, particularly Stacey Abrams, who was running for the governorship of Georgia, as well as there was a sister. Let me see if I can pull her name up very quickly. She was running for the position of mayor in LA, the mayoralship, Karen Bass. So we're going to talk about this a little bit. What does this mean? Particularly when we talk about this concept of Black girl magic, and of course, Black men being a problem. Historically, we've seen maybe in the past 20 or 30 years that whenever Democrats have failed to win an election, rather than looking at what went wrong in the campaign as to why they weren't able to reach their benchmark of winning an election or achieve that goal, they tend to do what? Just blame Black people, right? Well, it was because Black people didn't get out and vote. Now we're seeing a situation, unfortunately, where actually what's taking place now is, well, if they didn't win the election, it was because Black men didn't get out and vote. So we're going to have a robust conversation regarding this topic. The link is in the chat, but I'm going to put the link, I'm sorry, is in the description, but we're going to put the link in the chat as well. But I got to go over the ground rules. As you all know. First and foremost, here at Lumumba Speaks, we believe in diversity of thought. So I don't have a care or concern if you disagree with my position on a particular issue. I believe in diversity of thought. We know that African people, Black people, we are not a monolithic group. And so as a result, Blackness can manifest in a myriad of ways and also in numerous ideological constructs and, of course, worldviews. Number two, as I always state, you cannot use racial epithets of any kind to provide adjectives for Black people. That's just not something I allow in any way, shape, or form, not on my platform, right? This is a Black empowerment initiative. And as we know, when we talk about the three N's of Black power, self-respect, self-defense, and of course, self-determination, we first have to respect ourselves as an African people. And we will do that by not using racial epithets of any kind to describe Black people. I believe that if you have to use a racial epithet, then this is not the platform for you. And then last but not least, you cannot make a claim that is patently false. If you make a claim that is patently false, I will cut you off. Once again, I have no care or concern if someone engages in diversity of thought, right? If you have a perspective that is diametrically different than my own, hey, it's all love. We're here to have a robust conversation, an intellectually stimulating conversation. But with that being said, I cannot allow someone to make claims that are patently false. And so I'm going to give an example of a claim that is patently false, that differs from, of course, diversity of thought. So yesterday we were having a conversation about the great debate. Who's the better player, Michael Jordan or LeBron James? And someone says, I believe LeBron James is a better player. And of course, I believe it was Michael Jordan. Hey, that's neither here nor there. Diversity of thought, you're entitled to your opinion. But if a person wants to make the claim that LeBron James won more championships than Michael Jordan, that would be a claim that was patently false, right? And so I think oftentimes, unfortunately, when we're having robust conversations about issues that are pertinent in the Black community, there is oftentimes, in my opinion, a lot of misinformation that's being put out, particularly because I would argue that a lot of times the individuals who are engaging in creating these spaces and these conversations are individuals that aren't truly invested in studying and researching the information. I know I did a show on my channel back in the summer on the debate between Pan-Africanism and this concept of FBA ADOS. And I brought the brother on, and he was polite. He was good, well-mannered, so on and so forth. But one of the major issues I had during the conversation that lasted almost 3 hours was that he was simply regurgitating what he heard other people say, right? And he didn't even take the time to actually fact check if what was being articulated was actually true. And so I find that to be extremely problematic. That's not something we want to do here at Lumumba Speaks. So just make sure if you make a claim that you can substantiate that claim. I think that is very important because we believe in being intellectually honest rather than intellectually dishonest. But As I stated before, the link is in the chat. As you know, you do not have to cam up to be part of the conversation. You do not have to cam up to be part of the conversation. And you can use a pseudonym if you come on and you're a part of the conversation. But I think this is very important to really ask the question, are Black women magical? And I state that because on the TV show Fox Soul, I think it's called on Fox Soul, there's Cocktails with Queens, something like that. There was a sister on there, Dr. Umar Johnson was on the show. And the sister, it turned out to be a trans woman, stated that, well, the issue is that for Black women, we are able to take white supremacy, throw it up in the air, and turn it into Black girl magic. And I and several other people took umbrage with that because it inferred, in my opinion, that Black men simply aren't able to handle their business in the manner that Black women do. And I think we saw that even so in the 2022 midterm elections, particularly with the results. We know oftentimes, unfortunately, well, I wouldn't say this, historically, Black men have never considered themselves a distinct social political group, right? So we simply, when Black men say Black people, we're referring to Black men and Black women. I do as well, that statement is weird. So Kelly is stating I do as well, that statement is weird. So I'm gonna have you tap in and be part of the conversation. So it's very strange, but what tended to take place is now Black men are to the point where, okay, if they're making sure they are set aside specifically for Black women, we're going to have the same for Black men. And if there's no policies that you're going to implement, that you're promoting, then of course there's no politics, right? So I think that's a bit of the issue. But the other issue, I think, when we talk about this concept of we take white supremacy, we throw it up in the air, and it becomes Black girl magic, is it infers also that Black men are incompetent, Black men are uneducated, right? And so Black men need to be led, in my opinion, from that type of discourse by, of course, Black women. I'm not sexist in any way, shape, or form, but we do know that the reality of the situation is that there's no community in which the men are leaders, and that community is doing well, right? I personally believe that patriarchy is rooted in nature, not nurture, right? I'm gonna say that one more time. I always propose the question, what mammal is led by the female? And there are two. I'm gonna throw that question out there, and hopefully someone can answer, but I know what those two are. So I think that's a major issue. I think the second issue is we oftentimes hear these issues of Black women are carrying the weight of the community on their shoulders. And that also infers that what? Black men are handling their business, Black men are buffoons, Black men are lazy, Black men are incompetent, Black men are irresponsible. However, on the flip side, when Black men are being responsible, when they are being competent, when they are seizing the initiative, when they are being leaders, what do we tend to find? We tend to find a situation in which they're now being called patriarchal. So we almost find ourselves in a situation, and this is really going to be, I guess you could say, a manosphere conversation this evening, but we find ourselves in a situation in which we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. If we are emotional and lack self-control, we can't trust him. He's very emotional. He can't control himself. He's a danger to himself and others. If the Black man does have self-control, if he's stoic, as many people say, that's rooted in toxic masculinity, right? So we see a situation which I would argue here in 2022, irrespective of what's taking place, Black men tend to always be the scapegoat. They tend to always be the blame. And so this even goes to this concept and idea of what we find with the 2022 election results. Many people argue that we saw a situation where people were complaining that, hey, Stacey Abrams, who was running for the governorship of Georgia, she ran again. And we know that she lost by a larger margin this time in 2022 than she did in 2018. And what we found was that when she did start reaching out to Black men, the conversations she was having were, in my opinion, extremely didactic in nature, right? She was speaking to them almost as if they were elementary school children who didn't know, almost in a paternalistic manner, in which they did not know what their issues were and how to solve them. What do you say to that, Brother Dinah? Prince Dinas Demir, the man, the myth, the legend. What's the word?
Yo, peace. I was somewhat distracted. Can you repeat that last part?
Yes. So
the last statement.
Yes. So as we know, Stacey Abrams
Mm-hmm.
Once again, she ran for governor. This time in 2022, she lost by a larger margin than she did in 2018. But one of the things that we saw creeping up, right, towards the actual election was people kind of highlighting that, hey, your campaign haven't really reached out to Black men. She then had some, I would argue, it's rather quickly thrown together meetings with Black men. I was able to really tap in and kind of view the culture of those meetings, the discourse, and it came off in an extremely didactic manner. Almost like she was trying to educate them on what the issues were that were facing their Black men in their community and how they needed to be solved. So, what do you say to Stacey Abrams, her failed campaign? What do you think comes next?
Well, she didn't. Well, she didn't. She still got the black male vote. I think 84% of black men who voted for Stacey Abrams. So she still
Mhm.
got the black vote. Period. What
Okay,
she lost was the white woman suburb vote. That's what she
okay,
lost.
okay,
Um, I think what happened, you just had a shift because I know in 2020, when Biden won, they were, hey, we need to thank black women for saving the Democratic Party and black
right,
folks for saving the Democratic Party, but it was really white women in the suburbs who came out in mass and
hmm
voted for the Democratic Party.
right,
So they ended up losing that vote. I think a lot of it had to do with I called it so in 2020 when Biden won, it was the Democratic Party was able to get like the white guilt vote because of what was going on with George Floyd.
right,
So then after BLM got exposed and Negroes are still tearing stuff up, they were like, "Oh, the hell with this!" Crime is still out of control. They're like, "The hell with this!" In New York, um, people just getting pushed, randomly getting pushed into the subway tracks. They're like, the hell with this. This ain't working out. So we're just gonna go back and vote Republican.
right. Okay. And Butter
So
Barana says Black women are magical and Black men are wizards. So I'm gonna need you to tap in and elaborate by what you mean by that. Because as you know, I've done a show on spookism, and I'm not a fan of spookism in any way, shape, or form. So I'll need you to tap in and really let me know what do you mean by that by your statements that Black women are magical and Black men are wizards. Go ahead, Butter Dinus.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what he means by I don't know what he means by that as well. I just know whenever they say black girl magic, it's specifically black women on the left,
Right.
black women on the right
Yes.
who
Yes.
are successful. For some reason they don't get categorized as black girl magic. So um
Right.
I don't know. So,
Right.
but you notice like black girls magic. They kind of and everybody who's watching this, Dinah Samir loves his sisters. I love the sisters. I love black women.
Absolutely.
So don't give me the but yo mama black or you hate black women. Like don't start.
Right.
But you haven't really heard the phrase black girl magic lately, like it was back like 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, I just think there's just a shift going on
Okay.
overall, especially when it comes to politics and black women. And I think, my theory is the Democratic Party used black women as the talking piece or the face of the propaganda of the
Absolutely.
Democratic Party. And from what we've seen here in Georgia, it failed. Stacey Abrams lost. Herschel and Warnock, it's going to be a runoff December 6th, and Herschel might pull it off.
So you think he really has a fighting chance?
I'm gonna tell you why. Because the black enthusiasm, is not gonna be there. Because Warnock was riding the coattails of Stacey Abrams. Because Stacey Abrams, then it was okay, Warnock.
Okay.
So if you look at the temperature today of black Georgia or black Atlanta, they're just like, I can't believe Stacey Abrams lost. And it's like, what were you guys expecting?
Right.
She ran a terrible campaign. If you really listen to some of her sound bites. I hate saying sound bites because
Yeah,
I like to listen to the
interview.
entire
I listened to some of
conversation.
her interviews, and some of the things she was saying, in my opinion, it was extremely nonsensical. I saw
Right.
an interview where she basically blamed inflation on women being pregnant and not getting abortions. I mean, it was just absolutely ridiculous. So I know what you're talking about.
Right, and I think some of the stuff she have said was more cringe than when Herschel Walker put out his badge. I'm serious because what did she say? The of the heartbeat in a fetus is manufactured so men can have control over women's bodies. Like it is just you
Yeah,
listen
like
to stuff
yeah,
like that, and it's just like what?
right. In my opinion, there's no way that a self-respecting man, such as myself, could vote for someone who says something like that. Because for me, that tells me what you think of men. That tells me what you think of me. So there's no way I could get behind someone like that. And I didn't even hear her say that. But that, once again, we're talking about nonsensical, in my opinion, psychobabble. Right? I mean, that's all that is to me. Like, come on now. You don't
And
believe
listen,
the words that come out.
psycho babble. That's the
Yeah.
best way to describe it.
Yeah, I
Psycho
mean,
babble.
like you don't even believe the words that's coming out your mouth right now, right? So let me ask you this, and we're gonna bring Brother Bawana in. What are the parameters around the runoff election in Georgia? Does one of the candidates have to get 50%, or is it simply whoever gets the majority vote?
I believe it's whoever gets the majority vote.
Okay, okay,
And I'm telling you, I think Herschel got a shot because I mean, Black Atlanta, right? Black Georgia, right now, they're just. I don't understand. Did they? Like, what did they expect? Did they really think Stacey was gonna win?
yeah. I mean, so
Because the campaign she ran, this campaign was worse than 2018.
got you. Gotcha. I do know she had a lot of momentum in 2018. And this is something I even mentioned. I think I did a show on, and I talked about how, yes, I felt that what she did, it was monumental. Yes, she was able to register all these people to vote for the Democratic Party. But I said the issue I have is you tend to find Black people always being propelled and given a spotlight in the media when they're doing something that overall benefits the white power structure. They're not given that same type of praise and notoriety when they're doing something that specifically benefits their people and their community, right? And so that was an issue for me. But once again, I think she ran a bad campaign, and so we'll see what's next. I know you said it on your channel last night. Hey, maybe she'll be on MSNBC.
Yeah, I see her on MSNBC. Maybe CNN. She probably do another book.
Right. Like I said,
Talk about
I
her.
read her book, Minority Leader. Matter of fact, let me grab it real quick for everyone if they haven't uh, read it. Let me see if I can grab it real quick. You know what? Can't find it. Maybe another time, right? I can't find it. But yeah, I read a book and I wasn't impressed. I just put it that way. Brother Bawana, you stated that Black women are magical and that Black men are wizards. What do you mean by that? I'm gonna need you to break it down for me, brother.
All right. Good night, brother Mumbo. Good night, brother Dinus. I don't like to, first. Let me give a caveat. I don't like to comment on the internal politics of another man's country. I just sit and watch from a distance, and I just listen to both sides to see what's being said. So I really don't like to comment on that. And I also understand what the implications are when the Democratic Party or people behind the Democrats try to use the whole idea of black girl magic in a way to condition the minds of many black women to vote in a particular way. But when I see black girl magic, I take it a different way, because it raises the esteem level of many women. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? And also when you consider many women in the Americas, some of them have many children, and they take one salary and they are able to provide and take care of eight children in a home, and produce productive people from that.
But
You
oftentimes
know,
that's due to getting assistance from the state. We got to be
you
real.
that's what you say. That's what you say, brother Lamumbo. But
I mean, but don't. I'm serious though. Like I'm serious. They get assistance from the state.
even
Food
so,
stamps,
even even so,
Section 8, to where they can
even
live in maybe a 2,000 square foot house and only have to pay 100 something. I'm being real here.
but even with the assistance, of a state, you would have to admit it'll be a whole lot of difficulties in raising a household full of children, no father, and producing productive children. And I think that you could historically black women have done that. To me, that's magical
Well,
because
one, I would say historically, no. We tend to find that the children who grow up in single parent, female head households tend to be unproductive, tend to what? Not finish school, tend to become victims of teenage pregnancy. And we know the majority of men and women who are in prison grew up in single parent households led by the mother. So the data shows that that's not the case. Children that grow up in a single female-headed household tend to have behavioral problems, are more likely to have issues with self-esteem, more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol, and become sexually promiscuous.
Sure, I give you that. That's what the numbers say. But you can't point to many women who have raised many black men and women in those social conditions in a home where there are many children, there's limited money, but they still are able to produce productive people.
I don't know. I don't know of any of those situations. I'm being honest with you, like I don't. Every listen, and this is going to sound bad, but I'm gonna keep it a buck. And it's particularly for my generation moving forward, but I can't speak for what happened generations before me. Every household I've seen in which the mother is the head of the household and the father isn't present, the home is dysfunctional.
Wow.
In my lifetime.
Okay, so I can't go past your experience, but that's where I'm coming from.
It's anecdotal, but I'm just going off what I've seen in my lifetime, in my 30-some years.
And anecdotally for me, there are cases where I've seen some different circumstances where some leaders in some countries come from homes like that. And let me also say this: the reason why I mention as far as black men are wizards, because historically we've been able to take nothing and create something with it. And in terms of creating industries like hip hop, people could criticize hip hop for what it is right now, but the fact that we've been left without instruments, we've been left without the tools to know how to, and we've been able to create an industry. To me, that's wizardry. That's wizardry. We've been able to do that in the Caribbean with reggae and soca and things like that. And I know I'm mentioning music,
right,
but there are certain things we've been able to pull together, despite the fact that we've been lacking in terms of the things that other groups have been able to be given and been able to use these things in a productive way and manner. So that's why I call us wizards and them having girl magic.
So I would say this. One, I get that. I think there's a better term for it called adaptive vitality, where we are able to adjust to changing circumstances without losing substance or essence. But in my opinion, when we go into the spookistic realm, when we talk about wizardry and magic,
come on, dog. Come on.
This is just my opinion. This is not a fact. This is just my opinion. It takes our people, and this is just my experience, working in academia, working in higher ed with our people. When we start using those type of magical and wizardry type, that type of language, it takes us out of being realistic, being practical, right? And we start to believe that we have some type of supernatural powers and abilities that we don't really have. And Brother Barana, you're a very educated brother. You've seen this, of course, when you're dealing with our people who are part of the Negro church. That they become
understood.
And they start having these otherworldly views about how they are going to make something happen when you're like, bro, that ain't how shit really go down.
Yes, I understand. And plus, I need to know my audience too. But I do understand you have to be careful with terms because you don't want people to go off into the supernatural. It takes hard work. It takes effort. And terms, it takes discipline to produce a particular thing. So I respect that. So I'll be conservative with my words from now.
So Bag 761 says, I personally witnessed where kids come from good homes with both parents in the household, and the kids want to grow up to be gang members. This is true. However, that is not the norm, right? So yes, that has happened, but that doesn't deviate from the norm. That doesn't tend to happen more often than not when there are two both parents in the home, right? So I think we understand that, right? So, and Kelly says, yes, in our lifetime, I can agree. When mom runs the home alone, there are bound to be problems, but this isn't necessarily because of women. Great point. Oftentimes this takes place because when you have a single parent household, so 2 points. One, and we're not going to have a conversation about the internal dynamics of the Black family, right? So we're going to get back on topic as focus on politics, but this is a brief segue, but I don't want to get too much into the weeds. But one of the two things we happen, we know typically mothers tend to negotiate discipline, right? When I was growing up, whenever I asked my mom something, she would say, go ask your dad. We knew, hey, try to go to mom. Maybe we can kind of manipulate her a little bit, get something that we want. We ask dad, he's either going to say no or ask 1,000 questions to where we don't even want to do what it is we were trying to do. I think it's the second issue, and many people don't look at this, is the fact that when your child is growing up in a single-parent household, there's going to be an inordinate amount of time in which they are engaged in unsupervised behavior. Typically, when there are two parents in the home, the amount of time in which the child is unsupervised shrinks. And so as a result, they aren't able to engage in many of the nefarious behaviors that teenagers and children tend to engage in. But with that being said, we're going to get back on topic. So another issue that we found was the sister that was running for mayor in LA, right? Her name.
Lou, man, sorry to interject. I know this is your show. She might lose. Is she losing?
Yeah, she lost.
She lost?
Yes, she lost.
Caruso won.
Yes, and the same thing. She actually came out along with Stacey Abrams and stated that Black men were the victims of misinformation.
Oh God!
True story. I'm not making this up. I was going to play the video, but what this means to me, once again, this infers that Black men aren't smart enough to discern facts from the hype. That to me, that's what she's saying. We're not smart enough to be able to differentiate facts from propaganda, and so as a result,
she lost. Karen Bass lost. I'm sorry to interrupt, man. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
I'm just because I know she was losing earlier today, but yeah, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. So what does that mean? Once again, you're alienating a group that you need to vote for you. Right now, we know most Black men probably voted for her anyway, but just to see this type of didactic type of language being used when trying to so-called court Black men to vote for them, I think it speaks to a larger issue. What say you?
You sure she lost? It's not.
Yeah.
I don't. No. It says as new results to be released Friday. I don't think she's losing, but I don't think she's lost.
Let me see here.
Yeah, I don't think she's lost. She's losing, but I don't think she's lost.
When I pulled it up,
losing. I'm reading the article.
She's losing. But I mean, he got 51.25%, and she has 48%. So it looks like she's going to take that L.
No, but why are Black men? Why are we the fall guys for failure of? Listen, I want to be careful. I don't want this to become a gender war.
Right.
Why are we the fall guys of? When it comes to Black girl magic, why we the fall?
I think there's a number of issues. I think one is because we're the softest target. I mean, if you talk about racism, white supremacy, and all the issues that Black people face in this country, we're public enemy number one when you look at the power structure, right? Now, I can even say this, and this, like I said, this might turn into a manosphere conversation, but I think that's the first issue. And the issue is you could blame Black men for anything. No one's going to come to our aid to defend us publicly or oftentimes even privately other than other Black men. So I think that's part of the issue as well. Also, we know we have, in my opinion, a pseudo form of feminism, a feminist current that's running through our community, in which most women, in my opinion, of course, Sister Kelly, you could correct me on this if you think I'm wrong, take on some of the symbolic representatives of feminism, such as patriarchy, but don't understand what the deeper understanding of what that ideology actually promotes and practices and believes in. So I think that's one of the major issues as well. So when all goes wrong, you just blame a Black man. That's historically what's taking place in this community. I think part of this also is that we're seeing a lot of Black women be put in positions of prominence as gatekeepers. A part of it is to keep Black men in check. For example, we've seen this with the situation with Kanye, especially even with Kyrie Irving, or even Ime Udoka, where on ESPN, some Black men, they make some great comments. I think Jay Williams said, hey, Kyrie's getting a lot of flack for tweeting the movie. Why isn't Amazon getting any flack? And the chick shut him down right away, cut him off, right? So we're starting to see this. I think with Ime Udoka, Stephen A was on his radio show and what's the chick's name? The young chick that people
The
think
light skinned girl. I can't think of her. I
yeah,
forgot her.
she's a misandrist. Many people are arguing that she's a misandrist. She called into his show and told him he needs to stop talking about XYZ. Now, mind you, Stephen A is twice this woman's age. And he said, listen, first and foremost, this is my show. I talk about whatever the hell I want. So you're starting to see almost like this mothering type aspect where for some reason, hey, because I'm a black woman, I could come in and just start going off on people, telling people what to do. Right? And then when things don't turn well, or it's because of sexism, so on and so forth. A good example, like I said, I work in higher ed. There was a situation at the University of Missouri. And this is around the time that the football team did the protest, but they weren't going to play because of the racial issues that were happening on campus. And this is a black woman. I think she was a PhD in higher ed student affairs, same field I'm in. And she didn't get tenure. Now, that's a big issue. If you don't get tenure, it's extremely embarrassing. You have to start over at another institution. It's just very embarrassing not to get tenure. And what ended up taking place was the reason people felt that she didn't get tenure because one, she was black, two, because she was a woman. That's the argument that people that was being made. They got this double negative, they're a double minority, et cetera, et cetera. What happened was she didn't get tenure because of the complaints that students and her colleagues made about her always just spazzing out on people. Right? So we're seeing this type of behavior and it's going unchecked. And as a result, it's almost, it's getting to the point to where almost everyone thinks they could act and engage in that manner. So, well, what do you all say to that?
I think that the Democrats are protecting the voter base because they are. When you look at it, there are probably more black female voters than there are black male voters. So they are protecting the base and then dividing that base. Because they know that there's a growing tide. You remember now, the pendulum swings both ways. So when you castigate black men, objective and reasonable black men say, well, okay, if y'all don't want to cater to us, if y'all don't respect us with our vote, we're just gonna go and support the other, move to the other aisle and support the conservatives. And there are a growing number of black men. Who have taken the position and say, hey, if y'all don't respect us, we just gonna let me hear what Donald Trump got to say. And I think that you see that happening more and more in the political. Well, you know what? Like they say, I want to listen because this is the internal politics of another country, and I'm very careful with the things that I say, because I don't get called a tether on this platform. So let me listen. I want to listen.
I got you, Miss Jackson. Tap in. What say you?
Hello, how you guys doing?
Good. Yeah, it was good.
What's good? Okay. Black men are not the problem. I think black women, got tricked into becoming a Democrat. I think my personal opinion is a lot of black women went to the Democratic, I call it plantation, because of emotion. I think what happened with a lot of black women is they had too many bad experiences with black men. And so I think what happened was the Democratic Party started, inviting a lot of black women to say, come on in. We'll take care of you. We'll give you jobs. We'll give you education, access to capital, start businesses. You don't need your man. Just come on in. And so I think what happened was a lot of black women just said, we're going to become Democrat. To heck with our men. We don't need them. We can be strong and independent. We don't need them. And I think the joke basically backfired on black women because it's like this. In my and I'm not into the pygmy gender war space. I'm just saying the facts. This is my personal opinion.
There you go. You got it.
What happened, in my opinion, okay, we went to school, got an education. Now we're the number one race and gender in college. Some of us got jobs in corporate America, became CEOs, CFOs, executive directors. And what the Democrats did, they systematically locked black men out the workforce in corporate America because they're too threatening.
So let me ask you this, because I do know in corporate America, black men have to compete with white men, the same as even in higher education, and I would argue in any industry in America, Brother Dinas, you worked in corporate America for several years. I know you were very successful in corporate America. You even wrote a book, I believe, on your success. Get out there and sell, something of that nature. What do you say to the comment the sister made?
My bad, I was muted.
Okay.
Sales motivation 101. Sales motivation 101. Get off your ass a cold call. Yeah, we don't control corporate America, so that's part of the reason why I left. So we got to build for self for the most part. So
Yes, Black men do have to build for self, but also what I saw. So what I'm saying is they shut Black men out of corporate America. And so what they did was pin Black women against Black men, basically saying, well, we don't need y'all ain't about nothing, you know. And now look what's happening to a lot of Black women. Now we can kind of turn it into a manosphere. It turned into a Black manosphere thing now. Now you got these sisters talking about, I make this amount of money. I can't find no Black men on my level. I'm lonely. I'm single. I'm tired of being by myself. Where are the good Black men that have money? And the joke fell back on us because now you got your own car, you got your own money, you got your own house. Now you don't have no man.
right.
And you're single by yourself. You got all this, but you don't have anybody because now you got all this money and now you're looking for a Black man with the same amount of money on the same level, financial level as you. And now the pickings are way too slim. Now you're upset. So I think the joke fell back on Black women. As far
So
as the Democratic
what is the solution?
My solution is just like what Dennis said. I think we just need to unite and start building, doing for self, because we just don't own and control anything. We're powerless, and when you're powerless, you fall into social issues. You fall into traps like this.
Dependency. Yeah.
Dependency and.
Okay. So Kelly says Kanye was correct when he said the brightest and best of us are taking us away from our community. I would presume that you're referring to what Walter Rodney calls the brain drain, in which the best and brightest of our community are taken from our communities and oftentimes work and live in other communities. So Kelly, once again, if you could tap in and be part of the conversation, all you have to do is click on the link if you have a computer or, of course, a smartphone. I didn't know Kanye said that because, a lot of what he says is a bit of dribble, right? So it's hard for me to watch the whole interview. But so building for ourselves, how do we do that? Where do we start? I guess is the better question.
Me personally, I've always said this. I think we start by following Dr. Claude Anderson's Powernomics.
Okay.
I say, why don't we get the Powernomics series and read it and follow it? That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
That's I've always been my suggestion.
Okay. But Bawana, what do you say to that?
I don't. I agree with Powernomics, but the elephant in the room with Powernomics is that your people must believe that they don't think that white man's ice is colder. Okay, and for Powernomics to be successful, they must have a belief that I'm only gonna spend my money in black industries. I'm only gonna do things productively with black people as far as constructing and building and producing and trying to escalate in society, do the things they need to do. The problem with our people is, unfortunately, we have the perspective of the other man ice is colder. So instead of going to a black doctor, we can go to a white doctor. Instead of eating our African American or black food, we can go to the Chinese, or we can go to McDonald's. Instead of buying clothing made or produced by us, we gonna go to Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, all the things the rappers speak about and preach about. Instead of buying watches from our own people, the difficulty comes with thinking in terms of, black first. We have to get on that paradigm before we are able to institute what Dr. Claude Anderson is talking about. And I think that is the trick. And I think that if we could sell the Negro to himself, and this is what Garvey was talking about back in the day. The difficulty is selling the Negro to himself, and I think that we have not been able to do as of yet. And I think until we do that, then that Powernomics book is going to stay on our libraries and say, well, that was a good book. We are not going to actualize it. Unfortunately, that's why I am with it.
So, and I think that's a great point. When you talk about Mr. Garvey, I'm actually going to be doing a series of shows on Garvey versus Du Bois, Garvey versus A. Philip Randolph, Garvey versus Hubert Harrison, Garvey versus U.S. government, Garvey versus everyone, right? Versus everyone. But you talk about selling the Negro, selling the black man, selling the African to themselves. So does it start with industry or does it start from education? I asked that question because I put a poll up on my channel maybe earlier this week where I asked the question, to gain empowerment, where do we need to start? Where do we need to put our focus? Is it in industry or is it in education?
I think it's in all areas. Sorry, sister. Go ahead.
But hey, Lumumba, real quick, I'm gonna drop off. I gotta cook dinner, brother. But
okay.
Well, thanks for having me on.
No problem. Okay. So what do you say? Okay, very good. So Sister Kelly says industry. Go ahead, Tiffany. Trina.
We need to start with industry. The education, we got enough education. Whether we went to a PWI school or HBCU school, we got enough of us educated. I'm educated. So I'm just saying, we got to do like Dr. Clark Anderson said, like the 5 floors. You start with economics first, and then you do the politicians, then the court system in the police department, then the media, then education. Education is last on the list. You start with the bottom, which is you start with the economics first. You deal with the economics because, to be honest with you, and I just want to say this real quick, I think the main reason why we have these social problems, period, in our communities, the disconnect with black men and black women in America, I blame a lot of it on economics. I think when you're out of order economically, stuff happens. Because, for example, look at Black Wall Street 100 years ago when we built it. It didn't seem like we had all that chaos in our community.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, but I think overall, so I think that's a good point. But I also think the levels of dysfunction we have today, we didn't have back then, because the reality is we make more money now than then. But of course, we don't own as much as we did, right? But I think one of the major issues is when we look at the levels of dysfunction that we have today, even when we have people who have money, I think it comes due to the intersection of 3 pivotal things that took place in the 60s. One, we're talking about the liberalization of black community values, the breakdown of black family unit, and then, of course, integration. Right? So, because the reality is, if you go back and look, even in situations where our people weren't doing well financially and they were impoverished, they still had 2-parent households. They were respecting each other. There was a sense of community. So I think some of it is more than just finances, right? I've been in situations before where I'm in a relationship or I'm engaged to be married. I'm paying all the bills and there's still problems, right? So it's like, I know that simply having money doesn't solve the issue. If someone's cuckoo for Cocoa Puff, if someone wants to be Mr. or Miss Negro, if someone wants to engage in racially disempowering, self-defeating, self-destructive behavior, doesn't matter how much money they have in the bank, that's going to manifest. We see this with a lot of pro athletes, right? A good example would be Antonio Brown, right? This dude is out of his mind, right? And he's a multimillionaire. So I think oftentimes it goes beyond the money to where there are psychological issues. And oftentimes, as Brother Bawana said, the issue of trying to sell the Negro to himself. Because if you don't like who you are, I guarantee you that you are going to engage in behavior that is disempowering and self-defeating and, of course, self-destructive in nature.
Yes. And then I also think we're too distracted, too, because it's like we're too busy worried about entertainment, we're worried about sports, and then we really deep into this gender war too. And I think we would put a lot of that to the side and focus on building. We can get it a lot further. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Kelly says education has been sold to us as if we are not bright and capable of learning. Historically, yes. To this day, we could even still make that argument. It has been a distraction from throwing our weight into industry, our shade Black power. Education has become a ruse of dependence. This is why I need you to tap in, sister, because I would hope that you can really elaborate on what you mean by that. Brother Barana, what say you?
I would say that it would really begin with our relationships, interpersonal relationships. And I think that if you look at our relationships as it stands right now, we are at loggerheads with one another, in particular with males and females. And any
Yes,
any society, you have to really start there and then build from there out. So when you produce good relationships, you create great families. When you create great families, you create a greater community, because the community is
absolutely.
responsible, the family is responsible, that the interpersonal relationships are responsible for one another. I think that we take orders, because if I know I need to ensure the building of my successful family, it places on me a degree of responsibility. You know what I mean? So and also too, let me also say this. I think that there's not necessarily one specific thing, one us as a group we could particularly do. I think that we could take the initiative and fight on several different fronts in terms of education,
Absolutely.
law, labor, all the things that Francis Quest Wilson used to mention. I think that us as individuals, we have specialties in all manner of different areas. As long as we know, ultimately our aim is to be on top, because I feel like we are in a competition,
Absolutely.
as groups in America, and we want to win. So ultimately, whatever industry, or whatever human endeavor I decide to go into, I must be able to produce or get on the top of my game to bring my people in. You know what I mean? Bring my people in so we could get into the top like other groups in America have. But I personally believe it starts with our internal relationships, and we could build out from there. I don't know what y'all brothers think about that.
Well, I would agree with that. I think oftentimes, if you look at what pop culture promotes in terms of relationships, I think it's threefold: the sex game, the cash game, and the con game. So typically, and when you look at modern relationships, what's being promoted via pop culture, particularly if you look at reality TV shows, you tend to find once again three things: violence, hypersexuality, and dysfunctionalism. Unless you're watching Flip That House, right, you're going to find something like that. And as a result, unfortunately, because as we know here in the States, 80% of Black children are growing up in female-led single-parent households. They're not able to see functional, healthy relationships. So what do they turn to? Unfortunately, television. We know that Black children, more than any other racial ethnic group of children in this country, watch more hours of TV per week than anyone else, right? And so the problem is 80% of what they see of themselves on television, according to the Association of Black Psychologists, what is negative, right? So once again, we're seeing a volatile cocktail of what hypersexuality, dysfunctionalism, violence, and what conning people as the norm in a relationship. And so I think it's extremely problematic. And so once again, if you can't even have a basic fellowship with your own brother and sister, there's no way that you're going to be able to build a strong community, let alone compete with other racial ethnic groups of people for, of course, scarce resources.
I would also add, if that is the problem, because if we are watching eight and plus hours of television a day, I would instruct these households to not have television in their homes.
Well,
I would
once again, but here's the issue. If you tell somebody that, you might get hit upside the head. I mean, this is just the reality. I mean, literally. So it's a big problem. And we know typically in America, because America is a society that really it's focuses on hyper consumerism, right? Happiness comes through what? Consumerism. This is what's marketed in America. That oftentimes what happens is uh, this foundation is laid very early, right? These type of seeds are planted in a child's mind very early, because what most parents do in this country, irrespective of race, is they use the television as a babysitter.
Could you imagine such a the television is the babysitter? Could you
Yeah,
imagine such a thing? So what are you gonna produce from that after 8 hours of watching the
yeah,
television as a babysitter? And on a personal level, as far as us being large consumers, you're not gonna get away from the fact that the culture of America is a consumer based society. You're not gonna
yes.
get away. So I think that you have to disabuse your family members and your community from. Do you know that the Jews don't watch that much television?
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
but
let me
I
not
would,
make a statement like that.
but
No, I'll take that back because, as you say, don't make statements unless you could back it up
yes.
uh, by by some kind of book or whatever. So I'm not. I'm gonna take that back. I'm gonna take
Okay,
that
we're
back.
gonna take it off the
I take
table,
that
right?
back.
You trying to get my channel flagged and shit. Yeah, so it's a big issue. So I think that that's a major concern as well, right? So but I think that watching so much TV plays a role in how what people black women could take on this concept of being magical, and then at the same time, black men can believe that they're the problem. I would give you another example. There was a extremely unfortunate incident in my hometown of Dayton, Ohio. Shout out to the 937 West Dayton Strong. Gym City for life, right? Dayton View, DVH for life. And what ended up taking place was there was an unfortunate situation to where the baby father and the mother of the child and the father of the child were not in a relationship together. The father, for some reason, killed the mother. He shot her in the head, boom, point blank dead.
Wow, wow.
Um, yeah, it was extremely unfortunate. So now the dad goes to prison. He's convicted. He's going to do life, and the son is now without both parents. So this is just horrible, right? I mean, we're talking about a 2-for-1 special here of black life being taken away. And there was a brother who came out on Facebook and was going in on black man, but this is because black man. And I tapped in and said, hold up, this has nothing to do with me. I didn't know neither one of them. This is an extremely unfortunate incident, but this is not his behavior of killing the mother of his children. Is not representative of black men as a whole.
Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely.
I said I refuse to allow one black person who's engaging in criminal activity to be representative of us, of all black men. I said this is the same argument that white racists were making back in the 1800s. So just because it's been articulated or parroted by a black man still doesn't make it any more true. Right. And so, of course, they got upset. They blocked me, so on and so forth. But this is part of the propaganda that comes from consuming all of this junk media, in my opinion, to where we start to believe the stereotypes, the hype about ourselves.
Definitely, and not only us, other groups of people who've never met us before, internalize these
Yes,
ideas.
internalize these ideas as well.
And it's funny. It's funny when one person does a bad thing, we are looked at as a group. But if a person becomes a professor, then he's looked at as an individual. Yeah, he's looking at it. He'll say, "Well, we have a group of black men who become professors, doctors, lawyers." No. He's just going to be looked at as an individual. But let one ridiculous, crazy person do something. I think it's like you say. I think that we need to. Challenge ourselves with the amount of television or entertainment we consume, and I think that this will be impactful, within our community. I think so.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's a major issue that we have to push back against. I do that, right? Anytime I'm in a space, I make sure I push back against that type of nonsensical, anti-black, misandrous rhetoric. I can even recall when I was in my doctoral program at Ohio State that, just stepping in, they were just going in on black men. I'm like, hold up, like, listen, time out. You know what I mean? Like, listen, you can't say that type of stuff with me in the room. But a lot of black men were socialized that, hey, if I'm going to be in this space, I have to shrink myself, allow these type of negative, black, misandric discourses to take place. And of course, with me in the room, that just wasn't going to happen. But we see this a lot, to where this internalized self-hatred, internalized bigotry in our community. And as a result, we know that this manifests in a multitude of ways that aren't beneficial to not only our own person, but to our community and people as well.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when he was given an alternative view, because I know there would probably be a lot of cognitive dissonance in the room, because people have internalized Yeah, we are the.
Yeah, I mean, literally, it was one. It was how dare you even provide a counter argument. Two, first off, it was the fact that you're even in this space is problematic. Two, it was how dare you provide a counter argument, and three, who in the HE hockey sticks do you think you are to even act like you have a brain? I mean, this is literally the type of vitriolic backlash that I received. And I even had a situation where we were having a conversation and one of the professors just came out and said, well, you know, black men be bleeding and beating on black women. I said, first off, that's a stereotype. You're promoting stereotypes about black men. That ain't cool. I said, secondly, that's not true because nowadays, unfortunately, in the black community, as well as all communities, domestic violence is bi-directional in nature. Right? So we're going to stick to the facts and not the hype.
I have been in some of those rooms, Brother Lumumba. I've been in some of those rooms, and I have held my tongue. You know why? You know why? Because I don't want me in challenging a professor, for him to grade me, you know, in a way just out of his feelings and emotions.
Right.
You know this.
Yeah, I know.
It's dangerous. You have to. It's almost like a tightrope or a tightrope you have to walk in certain spaces because people will get into their feelings. The fact that you're just challenging their ideas. You know? So I don't know, man. I don't know. I think that you could give a course on how to navigate.
Here's the thing, because as you know, I've been a professor before, and I would have so one of the things I would do in my classes is the first 15 minutes we would touch on hot topics, whatever issues are pertinent in the media, we would discuss for the first 15 minutes. And the students oftentimes would come to me and say, well, what is your opinion, Professor Lumumba? I said, my opinion doesn't matter. What's important is that you develop a sense of self-authorship and are able to articulate why you have the views that you do. Right? But some professors, unfortunately, even though not supposed to, they will use the fact that they are running their classroom, they are in a position of power to get on their soapbox and disseminate their views. And if you push back in any way, shape, or form, it could be murder, she wrote. Regarding
yes, sir. You better believe it. Yeah.
So Dogan says, in my opinion, they look at black men as field slaves and black women as overseers. I'm gonna need you to tap in, brother. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. I need you to tap in, and hopefully you can provide more of what you mean by that. Bag 761-764 says, I can see black girl magic driving black men to the Republican Party as we gain more success economically. Tap in, brother. I want you to elaborate. Mary Shaw says, that's terrible. I would presume that you're referring to the conversations that we stated that we had in being in higher education. As most people do not know, higher education is a industry that is predominated by women, right? We know that executive positions tend to be dominated by men, particularly white men, but we know as demographically as a whole, women are the majority population and gender group in the industry of higher education.
Okay.
Go ahead, you got
it. Since women dominate, in particular white women, I'm thinking you're referring to in academia, higher levels of academia. Okay.
Yes, the academy.
So I'm thinking, right. So I'm thinking in that atmosphere, you're either gonna buck up on two kinds of individuals, in particular white women. You're gonna buck up with the ones with complete contempt, or the ones with who has this little desire to mess with Toby in the bod. That's crazy.
One of my mentors told me, he said, listen, this is when I first started working in higher ed like 10 years ago. And this is back when I had my dreads. I'm gonna go on back when I turned 40, just to let y'all know. And he said, listen, Bakari, this is what you're gonna face here. He said, you're gonna come across two types of women. The one that want to call the police on you and the one that wants to ride you. That's what he told me. He said, that's the reality. That's what you're going to come across. They either want to sleep with you or call the police on you.
That's right. That's right. And some women, you have some women who want to do both.
yeah. They want to ride you, then call the police.
And then call the police and say, you raped me. Well, let me Okay.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. But this is a real issue, of course, in higher ed. But I think that once again, coming back to my central point is this concept and idea of Black women being magical. As I stated when Butter Bawana said Black women are magical and Black men are wizards, I think the mindset causes our people to be irrational and believe that they have special powers to do things that they don't actually have the ability to do. And I mean this across the board, right? For Black men and Black women. We know that during our courageous and rightful fight against colonialism and European domination, that oftentimes we always fought back violently. We weren't cowards, but there were beliefs that if you wore certain charms or religious bracelets and necklaces, etc., that would make you immune from the colonizers' bullets and weapons. We know that wasn't the case, and so for me, in my opinion, I think we need to move as far away from these magical and spookistic type of concepts as possible.
No, I agree with that. I think that when you say in the context and how you, because you don't want your people to go into the supernatural in these realms, right. I would suggest that, you know, if they were to put a name on us, call us strategic, call us well disciplined. You know, that these right. are more humanistic words, I guess, to use. So I understand where you're coming from with that. I do.
Right, and it creates unrealistic expectations, which brings me to my next point. This whole concept of the glass cliff. Have you heard of it? For you here, and then of course people in the chat, have you all heard of the concept of the glass cliff? We've all heard of the concept of the term the glass ceiling, but have any of you ever heard of the term the glass cliff?
Never heard of it. What's that?
Okay, so we got Sister Kelly, Brother Bag, 761st, Dogan, Mary Shy. Have you all heard of the concept the glass cliff? So hopefully you all can respond in the chat. But the glass cliff is a situation in which Black women are being brought into positions of upper management, executive level positions. And there's a belief that they're going to be able to, irrespective of the history, culture of the organization or company, create Black girl magic and transform the culture of the company. And when they aren't able to do so, the work environment becomes extremely toxic for them. And we're finding Black women, irrespective of how much they're being paid, leaving these jobs after 1 or just 2 months on the job because of this. And this has been termed, of course, the glass cliff, where they're almost being pushed out because they're expected to come into these spaces and perform magic, wizardry, for crying out loud. And when it doesn't happen, they receive all the blame, even though the situation was, messed up before they even got there.
I don't know, why would a corporation think that, and what would I don't understand what would be the rationale for a corporation to think solely on the basis of the fact that it's a Black woman, she is going to be able to come into a company and change the culture of the environment in the company. I don't understand.
I don't think they actually do. I think it's a way of saying, see, we tried to give them a chance and they failed, even though they were set up to fail.
Okay, well, the only thing I would say to that is, for Black women who is well skilled and educated and who is given those kinds of opportunity, you have to scrutinize, what position to take on, and not because a position may have a price tag of something that would put you in an economically comfortable situation, you should just take it on. Everything is not for you, everything is not for you at all.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the major issues. But of course, you go to college, you get an advanced degree, you probably got a lot of student loans, so you're looking for that big time job, right? That brings the prestige, the notoriety, the social clout, and of course the paycheck that you've always been looking for, right? And so I think that plays a role in why individuals are taking those jobs. And we're making an assumption here that maybe not scrutinizing, or maybe, hey, a person does think they could go in based on the skill set they've developed throughout their time, and not only in the academy, but also their career, that they can go in and right some of these wrongs. But unfortunately, what we tend to find is that irrespective of the person's gender, if you're Black, you tend not to be respected if you're in a position of leadership in this country.
I mean, that's just common sense. Even though I might be the most qualified person for the position, if I am going into an industry that is dominated by probably white males, And if I'm being put in a position where I have the ability to tell these white males what to do, regardless of the fact that I'm well educated and I'm the most qualified person, there will be some side effects. There will be some things that's not mentioned on the so-called application form, that I should be aware of. And as an educated black person in America, I should be aware of these things before I would take on an opportunity like that, because these are factors, in regards to even mental health. Me as if I'm a black woman, do I want to deal with all these crazy white men who are gonna challenge me at every turn if I tell them to just turn on that light over there? I don't know. I think that, well, I guess that's for women to comment on more so than me.
Right, right. And so I think that's a major issue as well. Which brings me to my last point when we talk about are black women magical or black men to blame. And that, of course, is the issue of the MSNBC reporter who was fired just a couple of days before the midterm elections, Tiffany Cross. She's actually from Ohio. She's from Cleveland. And, she had a lot of smoke for black men. Kevin Samuels has been dead for months, but for some reason he was living rent-free in her head, right? She spoke ill of Kevin Samuels, even Tariq Nasheed.
Is she married?
Tiffany Cross?
Yes.
I do not know.
Okay.
But she went on Charlamagne the God show, and she made some unflattering comments about some conservative commentators, and she made some unflattering comments about the state of Florida, stating that Florida is the dick of the country. And then, of course, she was canned. And what happened was, she was fired on a Friday, and then her staff was informed that the show had been canceled and she had been fired that Friday morning when they were coming into work. So I think we're finding a situation, unfortunately, that because of this propaganda behind black women being magical, that there's a belief that they can almost do and say whatever they want with no repercussions. And of course, unfortunately, they're realizing that's not the case.
I mean, historically, well, maybe because women used to work inside of the homes of a lot of these people back in the day. I guess they could have said more so to their white employer, than black men. So I guess they feel like they could do it in the corporate plantation that they on right now. But I don't. It's for you to dismiss the fact that there's going to be pushback if you say certain things on public platforms. I think
right. I mean, this is common sense. Yeah.
Well, that's unrealistic, man. That's unrealistic.
Right.
You have to know your audience. Know your audience. Not at Charlamagne.
Well, not even if it's on Charlamagne. They got the fact that this is a public broadcast, right? National in nature, national in scope. Like I said, for me, my favorite word is nonsensical. That behavior is nonsensical. You are a professional. You're representing your company at all times, even if you're on the clock or off the clock. We saw a situation even with Paul Pierce, where he was off the clock. He was a commentator for ESPN, but he was at he was somewhere playing cards, playing poker, shooting dice, drinking, and the strippers are around. Well, ESPN, which is a derivative of Disney company, which is supposed to be a family brand, said, "Hey, this is problematic. We are a family company. You're promoting this information on your chat, on your, of course, social media pages. We're gonna have to let you go." So I think for some reason, some people maybe think that they're untouchable, infallible, Teflon Don or something like that. They must think they're John Gotti. You know what I mean? So
read your contract. Read your contract.
Yeah.
If I'm associated with a so-called family-friendly corporation, there are some things that I can do, even if I'm not on the clock, because the cameras. Just think of it like this: the cameras are always going to be on me. If I must do something, doing something where you sweep the rooms, no cameras allowed, people can't put you in a situation where you're gonna lose economically. I think that the brothers sometimes they get drunk, they start smoking that weed, drinking that Ripple, and they forget. And next thing you know, I'm out of my ass, man. You have to consider things sometimes, man. How is it gonna affect not only me, but the corporation that I represent, especially when you're talking into the millions of dollars, man? You can't lose that. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Absolutely. And Sister Mary Shaw says, "Nope, I am not magical, and I can't do everything, and don't want to." And this brings to another point where we see situations sometimes where, once again, as I said before, Black women are gatekeepers for white supremacy, to where we find situations in which they had the ability to deny a Black man a job. I've even had it happen to me before, right? So we really have to take a look at, are we working in a manner to benefit our people, or are we working in a manner to simply benefit ourselves and ingratiate ourselves with the power structure, right? And I would argue that a lot of our people, unfortunately, are simply working to better themselves and ingratiate themselves with the power structure. And I would argue this is the case in almost every industry.
We don't have any collective marching orders. Back in the day when you had the Garvey movement, when you had even the Nation of Islam, when it was at their height, go to your grocery store. They had the idea of, let's try to build community building, institutional building. Whereas now you have a bunch of cowboys out here. Yeah, I'm trying to get the bag. Everything is get the bag, and it's we don't necessarily have a collective marching order like how other communities do. And we could talk about that, but we don't want to get this channel shut down. So,
and real quick, we got a lot of sisters in the chat. I'm gonna need some of y'all to tap in and be part of the conversation.
Let's blow it up, man. Blow it up. Let's blow it up.
Listen, you do not have to cam up, sisters. Once again, you do not have to cam up in any way, shape, or form. I know it's late if you're out here on the East Coast, but I need you all to tap in, be part of the conversation. I have been accused before of having the very male-centered conversations, only having men on my platform, on my channel. But as I stated, the link is always in the description. I put the link in the chat. Everyone is welcome to come in and share their perspective. But we definitely believe in, of course, the African concept of duality, having balance with the male and the female. So definitely, if you all could tap in, you don't have to cam up. You can even use a pseudonym. We would love to get your perspective on the conversation that we're having today. I've seen you all commenting in the chat, but we'd love to have you on and be able to verbally, of course, articulate yourself regarding this issue of, are Black women magical and are Black men the problem? Back to you, Brother Bawana. But I'm going to put the link in the chat one more time. And don't forget to visit LumubaSpeaks.com and Black Empowerment Initiative, where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. Sister Mary Shy, you said that you're in Columbus. Sister Kelly, you're in Fort Wayne. Shout out to the Midwest, where we aim about mid-chest, right? And, of course, I'm putting together a robust workshop on the 4 steps to power. So we're going to be looking at some actual practical ways that Black people could gain power, particularly politically. I know oftentimes whenever there's an issue in our community, many of our people are crisis-oriented in terms of the leadership model that we follow. I want to get back to some preventive maintenance. We know the best maintenance is preventive maintenance. Then look at how can we actually gain power, and not only gain power, but maintain it. I think that's one of the biggest issues that we've struggled with here in America. I know that historically there have been outside factors that played a role in destroying the Black power base. But however, I do think now we could look at some internal factors that have inhibited us to not only gaining that power, but maintaining it as well. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Brother Bawana.
Yes, that is excellent that you are having a discussion on power. I think that's an important discussion to have with our community, because I feel like we are always talking from the perspective of powerlessness. We can't oppression. I think that this is a good issue to investigate and have great conversations on. Not only that manhood, but I think that there are some channels already that's talking about Black male manhood. And I think to couple that with power would be something that is very, very much needed within our circles, of course. But ever since the time Dr. Amos Wilson, I've not necessarily heard this idea of power being rediscussed within our circles. So I think it's a good thing to have that talked about again. I think that's
absolutely, and we know that historically that this has been an issue. Dr. King even has talked about the issue of power being the core issue that we have to address, even in his autobiography, right? And I've read Dr. King's autobiography 3 times. I have it right behind me here. I'm gonna pull it out. Matter of fact, edited by Claiborne Carson. If you haven't gotten this, you should check it out. The autobiography of Martin Luther King Jr., edited by Claiborne Carson. But also I found Stacey Abrams' book. As I said, I read her book, Minority Leader, How to Lead from the Outside and Make Real Change, right? So if you haven't read the book, check the book out. And then maybe we can have a more robust conversation regarding what are your thoughts on Stacey Abrams' politics and, of course, the campaigns that she has run for the governorship of the great peach state of Georgia. So just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. So see, I got some comments here. We are conservative in the Midwest, so I'm like, what do you expect? An argument may not happen. Not looking for an argument, just looking for more voices to be part of the conversation. I'm not looking for an argument in any way, shape, or form. Just want more voices. So Mufasa Shabazz says, Mary Shah, he called me a minute ago about me on Dinah's platform yesterday. I told him that you was asking where was he when the guy was talking bad on African spirituality. I would love to know, to be privy to that conversation and what the person's thoughts were on African spirituality. So definitely want some more people to tap in and be part of the conversation. So, but with that being said, I hope some of the sisters tap in, be part of the conversation. But I think power is the main issue. Whenever I speak, I let people know, oftentimes we hear people talk about the achievement gap, the educational gap, the wealth gap, the healthcare gap, the voting gap, right? But no one talks about the power gap. And I always tell people that, of course, working in higher ed, there are numerous discussions regarding diversity and inclusion, DEI, right? And I tell people and they talk about representation matters. And I always say, you don't need representation when you have power. You don't have to protest when you have power, right? And so I think that's the major issue that we have to look at, is gaining and maintaining power. And the ability to have power is it goes far beyond standing in solidarity, right? Having power goes far beyond protesting. Hell no, we won't go. No justice, no peace. Having power is the ability to be top down, punch down, and of course impose sanctions when individuals, communities, or entities engage in behavior that we find unbecoming and problematic. Brother Mufasa.
Hey, what's going on, man? I'm actually doing.
You haven't been here in a while. Where you been?
Oh man, you're hard to catch, man. I don't know. I haven't been able to catch none of your lives. That's why I'm glad I caught this one.
Okay, well, you got to make sure you got to hit that notification bell.
So this is what happened, right? So I hit I subscribed, and then I hit the bell, and then I realized like I was having issues with like too much attention to my phone and not focusing, right?
Gotcha.
So I turned notifications off of a bunch of stuff. Then I came back to YouTube, like, wait a minute, I know I hit the bell on these people. I thought YouTube was like doing some, some funny stuff. But really it was because I turned my notifications off on my phone. So they came off. So that was really the issue. But I think I probably maybe I'll set up some alarms on my phone or something. Because you plan ahead, which I appreciate.
No doubt.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I'm actually working right now. We're putting a proposal together, but I thought I'd stop by.
Okay.
Did you guys talked about Stacey Abrams already?
We talked about Stacey Abrams. We talked a little bit on Tiffany Cross, and then of course on. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What was your opinion of and I'll give mine, but I'm late. What was your opinion on Stacey Abrams' opinion that she was slipping in the polls due to black men getting false information?
Yeah, well,
targeted.
And I stated this a little earlier, so I don't mind reiterating. So I stated that I think it's twofold. One, of course, black men are always to blame. We're always the problem when something goes wrong. We're the softest target. We're public enemy number one. Right? It's almost like if you ever watched the TV show Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Whenever something went wrong, the family would just blame Will. It's Will's fault. Do you remember that?
Yeah, exactly.
We find the same thing today in 2022. If something goes wrong, they say it's black man's fault. Right? Because know they're lazy, they lack self-control, they're inherently violent, they're irresponsible, and every other negative adjective you could think of anyway. I think the second issue was it also stated when she stated that they are the targets of misinformation. It makes the argument that she's inferring, in my personal opinion, that black men aren't smart enough to be able to differentiate the facts from the hype, the truth from propaganda. So once again, it's an insult.
Yeah.
And then, in my opinion, then I'm going to turn the floor over to you. When she finally, in my opinion, once again, this isn't fact, this is just my opinion, started to reach out to black men, and I saw some of the conversations she was having, they were extremely didactic in nature. which is once again is an insult. She was being paternalistic, right? So it's like, what in the HEW hockey sticks is going on here?
I wasn't surprised by that, but like I was watching one. I don't know if you've seen one. It was a black dude with like this red shirt asking her about black men, and then she gave like this bucket of words about everything except something that I would want to hear. I mean, I'm not a Georgia voter, but I'm just saying if I was, everything except what I would want to hear as a black man, you know, in terms of voting.
Yeah.
But for me, I mean, I don't know. This is my first time, even though I actually ended up with a registration issue, unfortunately. So I didn't get to drop. I actually went up there, but yeah, I had a registration issue with them. I don't want to explain it all the way, but basically they changed my registration because of a PO box or a UPS store issue being identified and all this stuff, and I registered in time. But I had all my votes and I was gonna go and drop my ballot, but whatever, right? So unfortunately, for the first time in a while, I wasn't able to vote. But I had all my votes, and this was going to be the first time that I was going to vote for pretty much all Republicans, with the exception of Shirley Weber. And I researched
what state are you in, brother?
California.
Got you. Shout out to the Golden State.
Yeah. With the exception of Shirley Weber, I was going to vote for all the Republicans. She's actually Secretary of State. And yeah, there's a couple reasons I was going to let her slide, but for the rest of it, I'm just over the Democratic Party, man. I just can't do it.
Okay.
You know, I don't know.
What are some of the issues that you have with the Democratic Party, if you don't mind sharing?
So I don't like the fact that we're the top two Democratic voters are black people, black men and women. And it just seems like they deal with everyone else's issues before ours. It's like they get to us last. We have all this stuff, all this energy around black men being killed, and then one couple things happens to Asians, and then the Asians immediately get a bill.
Well, and I think
we don't get a bill.
Yeah, and I think the sister said that our pain is currency for them. So I think that's a great point that you're making,
bro. I lived it. I remember when I was so in my city. Mufasa Shabazz is my screen name, but my government name is Tory Robinson, right?
Okay.
In my city, and I say that because you could look it up if you ever wanted, but in my city, I was actually arrested I was given a felony evasion charge because I didn't want to pull over in this dark area, and I rode about like half a mile or so or something like that. I forget the exact distance. To a gas station, to a lit gas station. And then he called in a felony stop on me as if I was, and then went to court and lied so that I could have a felony amount, and my bail was set to $50,000, right? So it was this whole thing. And then actually I was active in the community at the time. So I reached out to, friends of mine from jail, and mainly my friend Lisa, who just graduated with her PhD. She kind of spearheaded a movement to get like a press conference. They passed out flyers. They got active on social media, so it made the news what they were doing to me. And some people were organized behind it and all that. And with all that attention, all the people coming towards me, it was fun. It was just so obvious that I was just a political football. That everybody was like, it's like how there's a fumble in a football game. Everybody was jockeying for me so they could try to use me for this, then, a friend of mine, one of his relatives that was in politics, she came to one of the rallies that was for me. And then was hugging all on me and doing all this stuff so the cameras could see it. Then I had other people come in, shout out to Uhuru. I had people from Uhuru come in holding, what's the name of that newspaper? The Burning Spear newspapers next to me. When the news came, people didn't really know me. So I've lived it. It's funny. Because the thing is, right, I was actually conscious. This is maybe 6 years ago or something, but I was already conscious, right? But some people who approached me, they seen the people around me. Because I don't know if you're active in the community where you're from, but it's the same faces, right? It's the same people.
Yeah.
Right. So he kind of recognized some of the people I was around because, it kind of scared him off because we got a guy. I don't even know if I should name him, but he's kind of like an ambulance chaser. He operates some would call it. I would call it. Let me not even say something. I would call it because it's
All
like
right,
if
yeah,
we don't see you.
we'll stick with ambulance chaser.
Yeah. I'm just keep it real. He actually had a National Action Network chapter in San Diego. There wasn't really many followers, but yeah. So he was trying to approach me, but I could kind of see that he shied away because of who I knew. But anything else that would happen in the city, he would always find a way to secure the victims of it. He'd always find ways to get next to them. He was trying to do the same with me, but he kind of filtered out. So I don't know. I kind of
chase
went
ambulances, absolutely. Kelly says
right.
an attorney who stalks accidents, absolutely.
Right.
Hey,
It is
Kelly,
funny.
Kelly, Sister Kelly, you keeping the comments coming, though. I got to give you love for that, sis, for real.
Oh yeah, shout out to her. I ain't reading the comments. Let me check them out.
So go ahead, brother, and then I'm gonna let Sister Mary Shy, because I think she took umbrage with some things that you allegedly said on Brother Dinah's channel. So
Yeah. I'll clue you in on that. I kind of went on a tangent. We could go into that.
It's quite all right. It's quite all right. But I'm
Yeah.
gonna let you finish, and then I'm gonna pass the mic to Sister Shy.
Yeah, I think the point I was making, I'm kind of lost in my point.
You was talking about the brother chasing ambulances. You realized things that he.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So he pretty much was. Yeah, he was kind of like he kind of shied away, and I don't really remember. I guess the point was that I lived and experienced being a political football and how we're used as just currency. You're just like a pawn in this whole game. Everybody's pulling on you. Everybody's doing this. I'm like, man, yesterday the black man's nothing. You ain't nothing until you get until something happens to you. And I remember going to talk to lawyers trying to sue for this incident.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a game. It's like, oh man, he was like, yeah, we got this one. And then one lawyer, he was like, yeah, we got this case right here. Check this out. This guy, he was assaulted. We got the picture right here, right before it happened. It's like he's not. It's just a game. You get what I mean? Like a man is beat. Yeah. He's happy looking at it like a sales lead.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lack of empathy for the actual victim of the situation.
Yeah, and I don't mind anything like that. I don't expect them to care. But it was just for me, it really just it cemented it. Like I was just like, damn, this is all a game. It let me know with this nonprofit thing, it's like any other business, and I'm the currency. Like these well-meaning people who are just there to help. You're the currency. You're like the sucker. And then you got all these other people who know what time it is using you. But it's interesting.
Absolutely. Sister Shy, I'm gonna let you tap in.
Okay, hello.
Yes.
Okay, hi, how are you? How's everyone doing?
Doing quite all right.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so with the topic, are black women magical and black men are the problem? I don't think black women are magical. And as far as black men are the problem, I think both black men and black women both are the problem. That's my opinion. Um, Black women, I mean, we kind of been ahead of the households and stuff, so that's problematic. And black men, I just feel like I don't know, I just feel like they're not
So
really
let me ask you
doing
this
their
real quick.
part. So huh?
So let me say just real quick. I'm gonna say this because I'm just gonna play devil's advocate. You said that black women being head of the household is problematic. Why is that? And I'm just being devil's advocate.
Because like I was taught that the males were supposed to be ahead of the household. That's what I was taught. And even
Okay.
though I know my father, I do, but I grew up in a home that was broken. And so
Okay.
I just and I in my but he wasn't always in my life and it's not his fault and I don't want to get into it, but I have a relationship with him now, but I think it's problematic because I needed my father there. I needed him there. And it's just I just think that it needs to be two people in the home, a man and a woman in the home together raising their kids. And that's what I agree with. And I just think it's bad because when women are just raising men, I just don't. A woman cannot raise a man, in my opinion. Only a man can raise a man. I mean, a little boy, and that's why I feel like a lot of these young men are so messed up because they need a male figurehead. They need a male figure in their life.
Well,
And that's just my opinion.
if I could, I'm a one up you there. They need their daddy, not just a male, because we find this a lot
Yes,
with women of all racial
yes,
ethnic groups. They be like, well, my kids don't need their dad. Any guy will do. No, those children want their daddy.
no, yes, that and that's what I was trying to say. I'm sorry, but I'm just saying, not everyone's father. Like, some fathers are locked up. Some fathers, they have been killed. So I'm just saying, some male children, they need a father figure. 'Cause like I said, not all fathers, are present. I mean, not some of them are in jail, some of them are dead. Like my brother's father, he passed away. So he passed away from cancer. So I'm just saying that my brother, he needs a male figure in his life. I mean, my brother, he's grown, but still he needed some, like, a male figure in his life, and so, but that's just my opinion. Like,
I got
so
you.
I believe both. Oh, okay, sorry.
No, I said I got you. I understand where you're coming from. Go right ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I think um it needs to be two parents in the home, and I just think black women are not magical, and both genders, I mean, it's they're the problem. That's my opinion.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Very good. So let's just go back real quick. Let's see if we can kind of tap into the conversation that took place on the Dynast channel, because I'm on there a lot. So I take it that there were some comments about African spirituality that you took umbrage with.
Yeah, the other day. So it was yesterday, right? I think it was yesterday, because I
Yeah,
actually jumped.
it was
What
I'm
was it
sorry,
now?
Mufasa, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I jumped on there briefly yesterday, and it was somebody. I was telling her because what happened was somebody came on there, in my opinion, disrespecting African spirituality and speaking about things that he didn't know.
Could you give me some examples of what was said?
He was saying that people are going over. You can help me out. Jump in at any time, Mary Shah. But he was saying that people are going over to Africa to get into this African spirituality, and it's evil, and they're killing people. I'm from Africa, so I see them killing people and doing juju in an evil way, and people are going over to practice this stuff, but they don't know that it's evil. In a
But
nutshell.
my thing is, I was telling the person in the comments that enslaved Africans, they brought their traditional spiritual systems over to America. That's why some of us practice Louisiana voodoo, Ifa spirituality, and then you got Santeria, which is a mixture of
Right.
Ifa spirituality
Right.
and the Catholic religion, and then you got Obia that the Caribbeans practice, and then you got African American hoodoo that we practice here in America. So how can he try to say that we don't? I guess he think that we don't know about it. Like, yes, we do. We've been, I mean, in Brazil, they've been practicing Ifa spirituality like
For
for
centuries.
like for years.
For
So
centuries.
like
Yeah.
so how can he try to say, oh, it's evil and all that, and that I guess like we don't know about it. Like, we our enslaved ancestors, we brought that to the Americas and stuff. So
Right.
I don't
So let
know.
me ask
It,
you
it
this:
just kind of peed me off.
was the brother practicing an Abrahamic faith? Because in Abrahamic faiths, you're taught that African religion, African spirituality, African culture is nothing more than pure paganism and, of course, devil worship.
Right. Yeah, he was a Christian, and that was his whole point. And but this is my thing, right? Because I don't like to go on, even what I did yesterday. I don't like debate. I don't like arguing religion. It's not really productive. You know what I mean? Because you got your religion. I can't prove most of it, and you can't prove most of yours. This is a faith-based journey that we're going on, right? But what he did was he used his Christianity to project and speak on things he didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, and I've always told people, and just full disclosure, I'm an atheist, right? My parents were ministers, but I have a background, of course, in African studies and, of course, African American studies, bachelor's and master's degrees. And one of the things I told my parents, I said, Christians are arrogantly ignorant. And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, Christians believe that simply because they have accepted Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, that somehow gives them insight and the authority to speak on things they know absolutely nothing about.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
That's what I'm saying, and that was really my point. I was saying you could speak from a Christian perspective. I don't even have a problem with him saying it's pagan, it's this and this and that. But when you get on there and you say, well, I'm from Africa, so I know, right? And this X, Y, and Z is happening. And then I get on there and I ask him, what did he study? And he said nothing, you know?
Yeah,
so I'm like, if
exactly.
you didn't study it, what are you talking? You're not telling us anything. You're making these vague references to things, and you can't specify if it was what people are going there to learn. Because most people are going over there to learn. Let's be real. Most of it is voodoo and the Orisha tradition, or Ifa. So for the most part. So, and then he's referring to some random stuff, and he can't attribute it to these spiritual systems or religions. So that was my issue.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I went on one of Dinah's tours to Nigeria, is to learn about the Ifa spiritual systems. And that's how I met Mufasa. That's how I met Mufasa and Dinah's and everyone. But but that's what I wanted to learn was Ifa. But then I just got distracted and I started wanting to study different things. So but it is what it is.
Oh yeah, I don't know if Lumumba knows that. Yeah, me, the two of us met each other on Dinah's first tour.
Shout out to Pan-Africanism.
Yeah, two of us met each other.
What's up? Okay, very good, very good.
Yeah, we took his first tour.
And that's funny because the brother Bawana, when he was on, he talked about how we almost have to have an education to teach us to love ourselves and believe in ourselves. But I've always made the argument that Abrahamic faiths, all the Abrahamic faiths, right? Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are all sites of theological, historical, and cultural anti-Blackness, in which the African is taught that in order to get closer to the divine, to become closer to God, they have to go through a process of cultural, historical self-abnegation.
Yeah, dude. But let me ask you, what do you think about?
Let me finish, and I'm gonna let you ask your question. But because I don't watch much TV, but I saw a snippet on YouTube on Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless show where they felt that Kyrie tweeting out the movie that he tweeted out was anti-Judaism and it was anti-Christian in terms of going against the values of Judaism and Christianity. And I was looking like, well, mofo, Judaism and Christianity is anti-Black. You know what I mean? So
that's true.
Line 47, you know what about being anti-Christian or anti-Judaism? And I always tell people, say, well, how could you take to such a stance? Well, first off, all of the Abrahamic faiths, not only do they omit African history, they falsify African history. Right? I could give some examples if you all want.
Yeah. Well, you said they falsify it.
Absolutely.
Where's the Bible doing that?
Well, the Bible falsifies African history by claiming that there was Jewish enslavement in ancient Egypt.
Oh, yeah, that's not true.
The Bible falsifies African history by stating that the Tower of Babel was the tallest building in the world, and God was disenchanted with them trying to build this skyscraper, so he caused them to not be able to build it. Tower of Babel, Beelzebub, Bufaloth. I don't know what the name of it was, right? But what I do know is that at the same time, what we do know is that for over 4 centuries, the Great Pyramid of Giza was the tallest building in the world. Right? The whole concept and story of Abraham being the first person to practice monotheism was completely false, and we know the first person in human history to practice monotheism was Pharaoh Akhenaten. So we see not only an omission of African history, but we see a falsification of African history. As an African person, as a person of African descent who is extremely proud of my African history and heritage and who is unapologetically African, I find that vehemently anti-Black, anti-African. And of course, it is offensive to my sensibilities as an African person.
I mean, that's a good point. That's a good point.
I mean? So when they try to come with this, I'm like, it's a problem for me. The other issue, when we talk about from a theological standpoint, we know that many of the core concepts that you find in the Bible, in the Torah, right, come out of ancient Kemet. Immaculate Conception, Virgin Birth, Holy Trinity, Day of Judgment, Book of Life. All of these concepts come out of ancient Kemet. But are they properly attributed to ancient Kemet in the religion that was known as Ma'at, the moral code in ancient Egypt? Absolutely not. And if you stated that this is the origin of where these concepts come from, you would be considered a blasphemer. So it is vehemently anti-Black and anti-African.
It's pretty much anti-everything. You know, it's built to be, it's like a colonizing type of thing, you know. They want to take over everybody. Everybody else is evil and a heathen, and or you know, for Islam, it's the same thing.
Yeah, so it was a strange problem for me. And Bag 761 first is stating the Europeans stole the tale of Gilgamesh for the creation. But I think it's Gilgamesh, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Of course, it's a Babylonian folk tale that speaks of this great warrior. And of course, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which predates the Bible by I think 1,000 years, there's a story of the Great Flood in there as well. So I'm like, man, get the you know what out of dating. Like I know too much, you know what I mean. And I always tell people, I don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe because I know too much. But you was going to ask me a question, Brother Mufasa.
Yeah, I don't. My memory ain't that well.
Okay, my bad. I went on a tangent there, but yeah, I'm like, listen, and I always tell people, there's no way, in any way, shape, or form, that you could be a Black person, be unapologetically proud of who you are as a Black person, a person of African descent, and be, guess what, a Christian, a Muslim, or a person who practices Judaism. And you don't think you could just adjust the doctrine? You don't think you could just adjust? Absolutely not. And that's what I'm about to mention. Even when you go into Black liberation theology, because the basis of what you're practicing and believing in is still anti-African. Even if you try to switch it up, it's almost like Black feminism. It's just white feminism and blackface. Because if you're accepting Christianity, if you're accepting Islam, if you're accepting Judaism, by practicing those faiths, by adopting those faiths, you're also stating that African traditional religions are wrong. Because those faiths argue that there is no multiple ways to the divine. There is no multiple paths to salvation. There's only one way, and it's through what? Muhammad, Jesus, or of course Moses. Yeah, but let's say if I practice Christianity from the perspective of, you know, an Ethiopian or the Coptic church. You don't think that will work? So we're going to, that's a great question. I'm proud of you. So twofold. So when we talk about Dr. Adam Missouri differentiates African Christianity from European Christianity. And he refers to African Christianity, he refers to, of course, the Christianity that took place in the Coptic Church in Egypt at the turn of the Common Era, and of course Christianity in Ethiopia that came via 4th century CE, 4th century Common Era. Now there are some schools of thought that make the argument that even those Christian narratives are still relics of belief systems of outsiders, right? So that's a conversation that you could have. But what I do know, because I've been to an Ethiopian Orthodox church, and their services, their beliefs are diametrically different than what you will find at most Black churches throughout the West, even on the continent. It's completely different. I can't say that much.
Yeah, that's why I would say, because when I was like a bitter atheist in college.
I'm still an atheist though, but I'm not bitter.
I used to be an atheist, you know what I'm saying? But the issue is, and I won't even say I was bitter, but I used to believe in trying to challenge people and doing all this stuff. And I used to think like we wouldn't really get anywhere with these religions. However, I later came to the conclusion that it was the doctrine of the religion that was an issue. Because my thing is, if Christianity is as bad as some people say it is, why is it working for white folks? See what I'm saying?
Well, I would argue that it isn't the Christianity that's working for white folks; it's the white supremacy that's working for them.
Right. That goes back to my point of we could just spin it and use a doctrine, you know, that a different doctrine of these religions and just dress it up that way.
Well, I would make
And
you
that's me playing devil's advocate.
I know. That's why it's like I said, this is a great conversation. This is an intellectually stimulating conversation. It's robust, so I'm not tripping whatsoever. I would make the argument no, because we've tried that and it has failed dramatically. Because in order to, in any way, shape, or form, to accept it and try to dress it up into something else, you're still engaging in self-abnegation. Right? And we know this is a huge issue for us as a people. And so what happens is no matter how we try to dress it up, no matter how theatrical, no matter how entertaining the sermons are, dramatic the sermons are, right? We still find ourselves attending this religious institutions that teach us that in order to become closer to God, we have to what? Reject our own history, heritage, and culture. And then as a result, that leads to self-hatred. And we know self-hatred leads to individuals engaging in what? Racially disempowering, self-defeating, self-destructive behavior. You know what? I'm going to have that coming up soon for you, brother. We're going to do a show on Black atheism. And what tends to take place as a result of this is, guess what? The very institution that's supposed to be saving your soul is actually what the instrument of your own damnation.
No, but I think with your line of logic will pretty much take you away from any religion. I think you would have to be a free thinker. Like there couldn't be any religion, because pretty much any religion is going to lock you into some type of thinking.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the reality is religion is really institutionalized cultural nationalism in the first place. We know Dr. Jacob Carruthers and his seminal text, Intellectual Warfare, which I have right here. If you haven't gotten it, you need to read it. Dr. Jacob Carruthers' book, Intellectual Warfare. He talks about that, how religions typically are just simply instruments of institutionalized cultural nationalism. And of course, Dr. Malefique Asante, in his book Afrocentricity, that of course he wrote, it was published in 1980, talks about how different religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are forms of what? Cultural nationalism that's raised to the theological level, and how this is problematic for African people and people of African descent. Even Dr. Ali Mazrui, he's transitioned on to be one of the ancestors, but he was from Kenya, I think Mombasa, Kenya, to be correct. He even mentions in his book, The Africans of Triple Heritage, how Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all of the three Abrahamic faiths have had a negative effect on African culture and African people, because they seek to replace African culture, and that you don't seek to replace something that you believe is good and right. You seek to replace something that you believe is wrong. And so what happens is, if an African person adopts these different religious beliefs, even though we know most of us practice a form of synchronism, but if an African person practices the religious beliefs and they really go to the fundamentals, then guess what would happen? They would eschew their own culture. And if you believe your culture is wrong, then you're going to have the same view about your identity, because your identity is shaped by your culture. So we can see how the domino effect plays a role in, of course, promoting self-hatred.
Yeah.
It's interesting though. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I'm still on my journey. It's leading me to animism though. But like, I mean, I used to be a Hebrew Israelite, Nuwabian, and I'm just so happy that I'm finally getting somewhere, because I don't know. Like, I was confused at first. But I think it's leaning me towards animism. So I think I'm probably just going to stick with that and just, just study more. But I think I'm just stick with that. So.
Why do you what is your reason for being on a quest to find a religion? Why do you feel like you need a religion?
Well, not religion. Like, I mean, I don't know.
Come on now. Come on with it, sister. Come on with it now. Come on out with it.
Well, because I was like, we're spiritual people. Like, I mean.
Okay, so hold on. Define spirituality for me.
Oh, you're gonna get that. Don't do it like that.
Oh my God.
Come on, you gotta define it. Oh. Define spirituality.
Okay. Well, wait.
I'm waiting.
Don't do that to me. Don't do that.
I'm
Okay,
waiting.
well,
Her tongue
okay.
didn't come to a
You you
custom.
you you'll have to get back that. I'll have to get back with that on.
So, and this is why I asked that question.
I
Because
have the
so leave that
definition when
sister
you're
her
done.
animism alone, right? So here's the issue. When you ask a person to define spirituality, and I'm not picking on you, sister, you know, I got nothing but love for you because you're right up the road from me. You're in Columbus. And we're going to connect in person at one point too. So here's the issue. When you ask a person to define spirituality, and I do this with everyone, you're going to get two types of definitions. You're either going to get a definition of spirituality that's rooted in the religion that the person's been indoctrinated in. So if you talk to a Muslim, they're going to say, well, my spirituality is what? Conforming to the will of God. Or if you talk to a Christian, and my spirituality is, guess what? It's having a personal relationship with God, right? Oh, the sister talking about she was Jehovah's Witness. We could have a whole nother conversation about Jehovah's Witnesses and how their religious institutions provide cover and protection for sexual predators, pedophiles. So don't even get me started there. We talking about some real brainwashing, right? But or the person would say, well, spirituality is, you know, how I feel and So no one can actually give you a real definition of what spirituality is.
I have a compensatory definition.
I'm sorry?
I said I have a compensatory definition, but go ahead when you're done.
And I'm going to provide mine, then you can provide yours. My definition of spirituality is what? Living your life in connection with your highest values and beliefs. It isn't sexy. It isn't provocative. But if you break it down, it's actually sensible. Living one's life in connection with their highest values and beliefs.
That's a good one.
Brother Shabazz.
So mine is nothing like that. Mine is compensatory. The primary use of this definition is for people who are confused on interpreting what people mean when they say spirituality, right? And in my experience, the definition of spirituality, when I decode what's being said, is my religion is better than the aforementioned religion. Usually that's what's being meant by the statement.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Yes.
My new religion is better than the aforementioned religion. And then I would say maybe in section B would be a bucket of words because I don't even understand my own religion. You're going to get like one of those two things. You're going to get this big bucket of words of dribble and babble and things that don't really make no sense, but you know, that's the gist of it. So spirituality doesn't really have a meaning. I like his meaning. I like what you said, but you notice I said religion when I was discussing what I was saying. And because in the end of the day, what I'm into, in my assessment, is a religion. And most of these things are also religions. Spirituality is just, you know, it's just rhetoric, you know, in the end of the day.
Absolutely. Says Brother Bawana said sounds like humanism to me. So Sister Kelly said she grew up in Jehovah's Witness. I'm scared to deny God. That's some real washing. Yeah, I grew up in a Pentecostal church, so I know all about Holy Roller. We're talking about Holy Ghost filled, fire baptized, running for my life, right? Ain't been in church in 50 years, and I still feel the organization is watching. I argue that Jehovah's Witness religion, like most religions, even the Nation of Islam, organizations are what? Cults. There's a good brother. He has a channel, but by the name of Dilo Kenyatta. I'm gonna put his name in the chat, and he has a term. Cults do not cultivate, and what we tend to find in a cult is that even in situations where you're able to provide a person evidence, they still don't believe you. They still will go on and follow the logic and teachings of the charismatic leader. So I think that's something we have to look at as well. Also, when we talk about the Jehovah's Witness that attend the Kingdom Hall, their official position on child sexual abuse is that in order, keyword is that in order for an individual to be held responsible by the church group of pedophilia, they have to, in their bylaws, 2 grown adults have to have witnessed the child being sexually assaulted. Now, anyone with
Jehovah's Witness?
Yes. Anyone with a knack for a brain would know that no pedophile is going to sexually abuse a child in front of two grown-ups. That's just nonsensical. It's ridiculous, right? And so there are thousands, and people say, well, why are you going into Jehovah's Witnesses? What people don't know is that 25% of all Jehovah's Witnesses are Black, African Americans.
Yeah.
Right. So this is something that affects our community, right? The second issue, and many people are going to really be bugged out by this, is that there's only one church that has an official position outlawing the sexual abuse of children. Do you know what church that is?
No.
Do you want to take a guess at it, Sister Shy or Sister Kelly?
The Kingdom Hall?
Nope.
The Kingdom Hall? No?
No. This is going to bug y'all out. It's the Church of Satan.
Oh, that's funny.
That's the only church in America that guess what? Officially outlaws the sexual abuse of children. And anyone who's in the know, if you've grown up in church, we know that churches tend to be a site of sexual predation. This is real, because if you think about it, what the holiest thing in a church for as far as a woman is a virgin, right? And so it's this concept of being angelic, being childlike. Typically, children are going to. I've dated women who've shared with me, I was grew up in church. I had turned 15. Next, the pastor's trying to take me out to dinner. The pastor's asking me, can he take me shopping?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've had women tell me this.
That's not pedophilia, though.
I know it's not pedophilia. I know pedophilia is the sexual attraction to children who have not hit puberty yet, prepubescent children. Yes. Right. So, but what I am saying is that there is an issue with in terms of children, and I consider a child anyone 18 and under. Sometimes if you're 21, in my mind, say y'all kids, right? Showing my age, right? Old man, get off the line. But what we tend to find is that one of the major sites where young women and young men are being victimized sexually is in the church. And I'm not just talking about the Roman Catholic Church. I'm talking about the Negro Church, Bedside Baptist, First Street Baptist, Church and God in Christ. You know what I mean? All of them.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yes.
Sad.
Literally.
And she said Jehovah's Witness stay away from court as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All of them, they're about that life. All of them are about that life. So I remember I was telling my daughter, I said I remember when my son was born. He's 15 now, and he's tall as hell. He's 15 and he's 6'2", right? Yeah. And when he was born, this is when I was still in the National Guard. I was in the Army National Guard. So we can have a conversation about that at another time. And I remember we was going to our annual training in the summer, 2 weeks, annual training. And I was on the phone with his mom. My son was he was a baby at the time. And he was probably only a couple months. And I was like, listen, don't take him to church. And they were like, what? You don't want your son going to church? I said, if you knew what I knew, you wouldn't want your child in church either.
Huh.
Literally. It's the worst place you could bring a not only from the point that they may be a victim of sexual predation, but also from the fact that they're going to be indoctrinated with an anti-African, anti-Black ideology that's raised to the religious level. So now they believe that, like I said, to get closer to God, they have to engage in self-abnegation.
Well, what do you do to replace the institution of, what institution replaces the church in terms of espousing morals to the people?
Well, first and foremost, I think that's a great question, right? And so I think we have to break down religion, right? And understand that religions were not created in a vacuum. Religions were created in particular cultures. Judaism was created in Jewish culture. Christianity was created in a multicultural culture of Greek philosophy, and of course Middle Eastern philosophy. Islam was created in a culture of Arabia. So what we find is that the culture is what contributed to the morals in the particular religions. So you don't have to have religion in order to have morality, because the cultures that the religions were created in is what created those moral constructs, ideas, and values.
Yeah, they do. But what morals are just guides that help society, to help people to coexist. Really, they're rules for civilizations, right? And the religions are set up to basically give a moral code and make sure people adhere to it and follow it. It's just wisdom being applied through systematic methods,
Well, I wouldn't argue that as wisdom, but
well, it sometimes it is, right? But it's like I could give you.
Have you read the Old Testament? That God is a sociopath.
Right, but okay, but this is
literally, not figuratively. I'm not saying this to be provocative. That dude is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Literally.
No, but God, and I don't even use that term God, but I'll use the term God in the context of the Bible. I don't believe in the Bible, but the nature is sociopathic. You know what I'm saying? Nature doesn't care. Nature isn't nice. You see what I mean? So if I'm telling a story to make a point of how nature is,
but nature isn't genocidal though.
It can be though. It can be nature. I mean, come on. I know you're a student, or hopefully you've learned about evolution. Most of the species that have been here are gone.
Yes, but once again, genocide means that you are specifically targeting a particular group to wipe them out.
But that just depends on how far we want to take our analogy.
Right.
How do we want, if we want to use nature as an analogy, that's now we get into semantics. Because technically you're true. What you're saying is true, yes. But if a circumstance is created where one particular species can't survive, nature has genocided that species.
I would disagree with your definition. And I would ask for an actual example in which nature killed off a particular species. Because all of the species that I know of that have been killed off, it was due to white folk hunting for sport.
Well, no. So we all know about the Sahara, right? The white man didn't kill all the life in the Sahara. Climate change did that.
Sahara, where the life simply migrated to other spaces.
Oh, I'm not limited to humans, though. I'm not limited to humans. I'm saying, when I'm saying species, I'm talking about everything. So I'm talking about the plant life. I'm talking about the bacteria.
Well, there are oases, right? So
right. But most of it that was there is gone.
Right.
And
that's not genocide, because genocide by definition is what? When it's targeted,
intentional. Yeah,
group. Intentional. Right.
Yeah, side is going to be killing, so someone has to do the killing.
Right.
So I'm just opening it up. But see, the rabbit hole I'm going down, that's what religion is. Like the Bible, right? I had a different understanding of the Bible because I read the Bible and without any knowledge in it. It just looked like a bunch of nonsense to me. And it is, right?
And the thing was, I drew that same conclusion as a child.
I did, but this is.
Yeah.
But this is the problem, though. This is the problem. The problem is that you can't just read the Bible. You need to be taught the meaning of the Bible by priests, right? So priests ran these things. Now you just have anybody just, pick up a Bible, or people that don't really know.
But if I can even, tap in on that, part of the issue was, okay, there was a group of people that believed in the Bible. Matter of fact, I was talking to this one sister. And she said to me, well, Catholicism is witchcraft. And I said, well, no, it's not. I said, the Christianity started with Catholicism. The Catholic Church was the first church in Antioch and in Jerusalem. What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. No, it wasn't. I said, yes, it was. I said, I know this because I had to study a history of Christianity because I minored in religion in undergrad. Right. So what happens is you just get different denominations of the same religion that decide that, hey, we're going to say this is what this scripture means. Right. Everyone else has a different interpretation. So for the Catholic Church, then we had the Protestants, then we had Lutherans, then we had Calvinists. Right. Calvinists actually believe that your salvation was preordained before you were born. And the manifestation of your salvation would result as a result of if you gained wealth during your lifetime. Even though there's nothing in the Bible to suggest that, this was a prominent belief during the Middle Ages.
But I think a lot of paganism was slipped into the church because a lot of the stuff the Catholic Church does is not necessarily in the Bible. They got a lot of rituals, a lot of stuff going on.
Well, the same as with everyone. That you can say that about everyone. Every denomination of Christianity is like that.
Yeah, when you start talking rituals and idol worship, and I don't know, they got all these.
I come recall when I was 14, I was supposed to be going through this communion class, and so I was like, "Listen, mind you, I've always, been provocative." So I'm in the communion class, and I said, "Well, listen, if this juice is the blood and this cracker is the body, it seems to me that we're ritualizing cannibalism."
Right.
They went and got my parents, right? So then I remember when I was, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't want to say anything. I was just agreeing.
Okay. So then I remember when I was like 10 or 11, we was in vacation Bible school. So I used to like vacation Bible school because the girls in the neighborhood would come to the classes. You'd be trying to have a girlfriend for a week or whatnot, right? And so I remember that what ended up taking place was we had a situation where they was like, they read some scriptures and they was like, does anyone have any questions? My hand shot up. Bow, you know what I mean? And I said, well, yes, I have a question. I said, I'm an African-American. Why am I learning about the history of people from Israel? What does it have to do with me? They couldn't answer the question.
Interesting.
Right? I give you another example. I asked another question. I said, okay, we're reading the book of Genesis and we've come across the story of the creation. I said, how in the HE double hockey sticks were there plants and vegetation on Earth before the sun was created? So I know scientifically that's not possible.
No.
They had to go get my parents.
No.
Why are you causing problems? I'm not causing problems. I'm just asking questions. So I asked another question. I said, well, if Jesus is supposed to be the Messiah and he's the descendant of King David, which is prophesied in the Old Testament, the problem I have is that they trace his lineage through Joseph. The problem with that is that Joseph isn't his biological father. How can you trace lineage through a non-biological parent?
Or
That's
is
not
it?
possible.
Does this clearly state that he's not his father?
Yeah, remember it states that he was his mother was impregnated by what? The Holy Spirit.
The Spirit, okay.
Yeah. So I said, well, if that story is true, then right, just shut up and believe. Absolutely. So I said, if this story is true and they were married and she got pregnant by an entity other than her husband, I said, that's damn adultery.
Right. Well, hold on. If she was married to Joseph and then that would be adultery.
If you are married, and forgive me, Sister Shay, I'm gonna use you as an example. If you are married to Sister Shay and Shay gets pregnant by any entity other than you, you're gonna say she's committed adultery.
Right.
I don't bullshit. It was a goddamn God, bitch. You cheating on me. That's what you gonna say for real. I don't give a fuck.
Right.
For real, I know how I would. Like, get the fuck out of my house.
That's what they're gonna say in most cases.
Yeah, right. I know that's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say, B, you cheating on me, get out. Right. Literally. Listen, I'm keeping it 100%. You cheat on me, you're gonna be called everything but a child of God and got to go. Literally. Right. I ain't gonna hit you, but you got to go. You can't run no Jedi mind trick on me talking about it was the Holy Spirit. Bullshit. You said Byron last night, not Jesus. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, I feel you.
All right, I'm being silly, right? But let's be serious. So we got like another 20 minutes, then we're gonna wrap it up. So I'm gonna give the floor to you and Sister Shay.
No, I mean, like I said, I don't know how we went far off the topic.
It's quite all right.
I did. You know what? You made me think of something earlier. You mentioned Molefekete Asante. Mm-hmm. Shout out to him because my daughter and I are actually studying out of his book right now, Classical Africa.
Okay, cool.
I don't know if you know that one, but it's a school form book.
Yeah, I know. I have one of his books on African history, and I'm trying to see if I can find it rather quickly. No, I have the one, The History of Africa. It's not the one on Classical, but I know.
No, it's called Classical Africa. It's a big. It's like it's a book for class.
It got pyramids on the front.
Okay, so you know about it. Okay,
yeah, I know
it's not like a regular book.
Yeah.
Now I want to ask you, how do you do you do any formal schooling for your daughter?
When you say formal,
formal in terms of like you like a class or organized times to study and lecture or assignments?
Oh yeah, I've been doing that with my kids since they could read. Literally, since they could comprehend. Sit your ass down and read this book, and then we're gonna talk about it. Now, I don't say it to them like that, right? I'm being a bit silly here because it's late. But yeah, since they were children, and when they were 4 years old, I put them in chess, both of them. Right?
Yeah, chess is important.
Always, since the moment they could comprehend, I've had them engage in actual structured educational activities outside of school.
Right.
I've even had them enrolled in life skills programs, life skills camps, chess camps, even golly, I forget how to say Saturday, Juma Mosi Shule, which is a Saturday school, right, where they receive African-centered instruction. So I've been doing this with them.
Who was producing it? Not who specifically, but how'd you find that? Just people.
Well, so in my hometown of Dayton, Ohio, once again, shout out to the 937 West Dayton Strong. We have a West Dayton Youth Task Force, and so the West Dayton Youth Task Force was responsible for putting on the Juma Mosa Shule African Centered Saturday School. So every Saturday they will receive supplemental instruction from 9 to 1 p.m.
Huh. Okay, that's dope.
And so one of the things I would tell my children is that the focus and the goal is to be able to compete on a global level. So I'm a huge boxing fan. I don't box anymore because I'm older and don't have the reflexes or athleticism that I used to. But I always tell my children, in boxing, there's this thing called being a world-class fighter. Right? You start off on a regional level, then you go to nationals, then international competition, and then when you become a professional, your goal is to become a world-class fighter, right? So I tell my children that we want to be able to compete on a global level, because look, the reality is we are living in the era of globalization. The world has shrunk due to technology. So you're going to be competing with a mofo from Bangladesh, from Pakistan, from Tokyo, and throughout the world for scarce resources, right? And so this is something I've pushed on them since they could comprehend. And I always tell my children, I said, I had a plan for you all before you were even born. Literally, not figuratively. Ain't no hype.
Both of them?
Both of them. Both. And I told them, I said, listen, as long as you're under my roof, you're going to have to follow that plan. Now, you grow up, you leave home. I told them, I said, you can flip me the bird, never talk to me again. I wouldn't care. I did my job, right? Hope that doesn't happen, but that's the reality sometimes. But I said, as long as you're here, it's my job to get you ready.
Right. Okay. Yeah, no. I was just curious how you did that, because I had my daughter a little bit early, but not really,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we would watch Jeopardy every night. We watch Jeopardy every night together, the whole 9.
Yeah.
And they ain't got no choice. I mean, it's just what it is. Like, for real. You're going to sit your behind down, we're going to watch this. Like, matter of fact, I haven't watched some of the old TV shows I used to watch, like Ghost Rider, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? They're a little too old for that now. But I'm always pushing something educational on there.
You know what? I like Star Trek. When me and my daughter watch Star Trek, I like that show.
Okay. And they always have to read. Every time we go somewhere, I make them pick up something and read. They have to.
Right. No, that's
and my dad was like that with us. With us. We had to read all the time.
Yeah, my dad used to push it, but it was a little different because he didn't do it. But he would still push it anyway. It was funny because he would tell me because his dad, was uneducated for the most part. And he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how they should be educated. He didn't know. But he would just take these big encyclopedias and just say, just read this. I don't know.
I used to read encyclopedias as well. And one of the things my sister, my big sister, she's the oldest in my family. And I remind her of that every time I see her. But I was good at sports, particularly football. I remember I had made the all-star team when I was doing Pop Warner. Then I would catch 2 touchdowns, come home and read the encyclopedia. My sister would tease like, who in the hell just reads the encyclopedia?
Right.
But it was interesting to me.
Yeah, no. It took me a while to start reading. It wasn't really until my daughter came that I started to actually really read, you know what I mean?
But I was always a nerd, though. And part of that was my mom. My mom was always was highly educated. And because I was the baby, I spent a lot of time one-on-one with my mother. And so as a result, she was just passing it on to me. And so I ended up developing a love of learning at a very, very early age. Like, and I remember my brother being in 3rd grade and I was in kindergarten and he was struggling with his math homework. And I remember I got up, I was like actually on the floor playing with my trucks. I remember this. And I got up, went to the table and did my brother's math homework in like 5 minutes. And I was in kindergarten and he was in 3rd grade.
No, that's crazy.
And so I remember all through school, I was in AP courses. And it was like, this shit is easy. I remember taking the ACT as a junior, not even studying for the ACT and getting a 24.
Right.
It's just like, this shit is nothing. Like, this is what it is. I got this. Like, I remember my parents had enrolled me in a Bible Olympics. Because I used to like do all these competitions. I grew up in church. And they enrolled me in the Bible Olympics. And they were like, you got to prep. I was like, no, I don't. I'm going to win just because. Like, I was arrogant as hell. Like, literally. Arrogant. Right. So then I remember we was on teams of 3. And so we show up. And I told everybody on my team, like, I don't even need you. I can win this by myself. I said that. And that's what happened. I was like, y'all can just go sit down. I got it all on my own. And that's what happened. I ended up winning. And we had the big trophy. And I was holding the trophy and I kissed it. It was like, yeah, I won this shit. Like, I was always on one, man. I was always on one, literally.
No, that's what's up, bro. And so your mom used to read?
Yeah. My mom was on point.
No, that's good that you had that environment.
I think if my mom, because of course it's 3 of us, but I think my mom could have been a college professor if she had went through college and everything.
Right.
Because she was always extremely analytical, so on and so forth. Like when I was going through school, she was the one who was helping me with my math and everything. Like, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's what's up, man. I'm gonna finish this proposal.
Yeah, no
Thanks
doubt.
for having me on, though, man.
No problem. Look, we had a great conversation, and I'm going to schedule that Why Black Atheists Matters for next Wednesday. So at Brother Bawana's request, I'm going to do a show on that. And until next time, y'all know what to do. Peace. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share.
Oh, yeah. Let me like this.
Absolutely. And if you haven't, visit LaMumbaSpeaks.com. Go to the request page. And, of course, if you want me to come out and speak to a youth group, church, community center, Black organization, I'll be more than willing to do so. I appreciate you, Sister Shay. Until next time, make sure you tap in. We're going to be doing the show Friday on the core tenets of Pan-Africanism. As we know, there's been a lot of misinformation regarding Pan-Africanism. So we're going to do a show on that as well. Until next time, y'all know what to do. Peace.